welcome to the Bill and Kelly Show. As some of you may know, Kelly is enjoying herself in Europe, and gosh, she's working so hard. The last time I saw the picture she posted, my heart goes out to her. But with that, I'd like to move on. The Bill and Kelly Show is a show that highlights people, events, and businesses in the Chicagoland area as well as beyond. Today, I'd like to welcome a warm welcome, may I add, to Mary Beth Schultz, who is the Executive Director of the Caring Place, and Dave Reynolds, the Porter County Sheriff. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being our guest today. We really appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy schedule. What I thought do, since Dave is here now, Dave, if you could start us off by talking about the domestic violence problems in Porter County and the problems that they cause in general to your department, the amount of resources and so on.
Sure. And I thank you giving us the opportunity to speak on a topic that's a lot of people don't like to talk about too much. I've said openly that our number one problem in our county is substance abuse, primarily heroin, and all the problems that derive from that. However, what our officers are seeing on a daily basis is incidences involving domestic violence, and it's a concern for officer safety, but also it's a thing that, or it's an area that the average person if it doesn't affect them, if they don't have any personal contact with people involving domestic violence, they just don't. It's not on anyone's radar. However, our numbers, reflect quite, strongly that the fact that it's our numbers two problem. And just recently, as of last week, we went to car cameras and body cameras. And we primarily went to that because the officers wanted it, number one. And number two, it's going to help our officers remain safe. But it's also going to be a tremendous tool for them when they go to a domestic violence situation. Because now everything that they encounter will be recorded. And I think we're already seeing that within a few days after our cameras have been activated, they're coming back and telling me that it's helping them write their reports. It's helping them document what they're seeing, because you can write down that there's yelling and screaming in a house. But a picture, you've heard a picture's worth 1,000 words. But if you have it on a video, HD. It's going to be a tremendous tool for us to keep our officers safe, but also to make our cases solid of what they're seeing.
Right, and as I know, some of the officers, they say that is probably, and you got to realize these guys walk in on armed robberies and so on, but they say that is probably one of the most volatile situations that they walk into is a domestic violence situation, because the emotions are high, adrenaline is high, and you never know what you're going to walk into.
Oh, no question. And now, we don't know who the call comes from a lot of times. It could be the kids, could be a neighbor, could be one of the one who's being battered. But often, what the Caring Place has done over the last couple of years, we've written legislation that's helped us. Because before, let's go back 30 years. We used to go back into a domestic violence case, and what the officers did then was they would break up the fight and say, listen, if I have to come back here, someone's going to jail. That was kind of the common theme of all law enforcement. But we've come full circle, and now we know if there's injuries present on both sides, then both people can go to jail and will go to jail. And we are so much more cognizant now of the children that are present. And before we weren't. We knew it was a bad situation, all the kids that are there and they're witnessing mom getting battered by the father or vice versa. But then we didn't even put that in our reports. But now now it's changed, and a lot of that is because of Judge Harper and what the Caring Place has done, and under the direction of Mary Beth Schultz here. We've become partners with the Caring Place because we both know we need each other, and we're on the same side. And so we've really come a long way. But you're so right, because when an officer goes into a situation and there's maybe substance abuse, there's mental health issues, it's a bad situation. And then you've got the emotion of why they're fighting. And what we used to be just referees. We would break up the fight and leave. Well, now we don't anymore. We investigate it, just like we do overdoses. We investigate it, and if there's a crime, people go to jail. And it still doesn't help preclude the fact that the kids are present and we need to deal with the children. But I've been around this situation for so long. It's just a good situation of what we have in Porter County, because we've come such a long way since the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. We've come to the situation where now when we go to a situation, we try to determine, what's going on, and then if someone has violated or committed a crime, we arrest them. But still, the officers are in peril, because how often when a wife would call, and then after it looks like we're going to arrest the husband, they go, "Oh, not so fast. I don't really want you to arrest them." Well, they're going to get arrested, and that poses a problem for the family, because that guy could be the breadwinner and he brings the money in, and she doesn't really want him arrested, but you brought us into this situation and we need to deal with it, and we have.
And we've had Judge Harper on with our roundtable on domestic violence, and she described that is not just an issue before it sees court, but once it could see court, it could be withdrawn at any given time, and so that it's a very complex thing. And I want to highlight two items that you brought up that appear to have a direct correlation to domestic violence. Number one, domestic violence is probably the oldest since murder, but some of the things that we have added to it, and particularly with Porter County with escalating numbers, we have mental illness. We've had many mental health professionals on the show indicating that their time with patients now is drastically increasing. Then we also have your number one problem in Porter County in substance abuse, adding layers onto an already growing problem. So all three of these, wouldn't you agree, have to be addressed from the 3-point stance, and so thank you for giving us an update on those numbers. And I'd like to roll over to Mary Beth Schultz, who has come to share with us. First of all, Mary, if you can share with us the history of the Caring Place and how it started and where it is now, and then perhaps we'll share some news at the end of that.
Okay, thanks, Bill. And I would like to also reinforce that awareness is key to making a difference with our mission. This is our 40th year. We started at St. Bridget's Church in 1978. And as Dave said, we've come a long way because we work cooperatively with law enforcement. They host trainings at the Porter County Jail so that officers are comfortable going into those situations which are not only highly charged but sensitive. So we want people to walk away with the best possible outcome. But yes, we started early on. I think we were the first domestic violence shelter in Indiana. And at that time, it was very interesting because I have relatives who still live in Hobart. I'm from Hobart. And they would look out at where the shelter was located and see men picketing to let their wives out. They needed to come home. They needed to cook dinner. So yes, we've come a long way, and it has evolved because now we look at domestic violence in terms of breaking the cycle, completing the circle, and all the different types that you would consider maybe not to be domestic violence, but it is, like financial abuse, the power and control that occurs in relationships. So we really have to address not just the problem, but how we can make an impact on changing relationships, how we look at domestic violence, and how we can really help people. Because just having a safe shelter isn't enough. We have protective orders in place that our staff has been cooperating with the local courts now to help with that, the Protective Order Project. I won't go into too much of that today. But really, if you don't address all the problems that go along with domestic violence, you're not going to change anything. So that's what we're really trying hard to do with the Amanda Forum, looking at the youth, creating healthy relationships. Because if we don't work with our young people, they're going to end up in abusive relationships later on in life if they don't know what a healthy relationship looks like. So I think that's really important to note as well.
Right, and I know when you mentioned the Amanda Forum, you have folks like Denise Kepke that is helping out with that regard, and she's also highly involved with the anti-bullying program at Valpo schools. So one thing that I heard you mention along the way again, the different types of domestic violence seem to have increased over the years, because now you have psychological and then one crazy thing, of course, that again, it's nothing escalates itself to a human life, but pet abuse during the domestic violence that sometimes takes part. So that is really concerning. But why don't you talk to us about where you're? What does the facility look like right now that you're in?
Well, it has served us well. But it's a 100-year-old home that has major issues: plumbing, electrical. It's dormitory-style living upstairs. It's very difficult to navigate the stairs. We have one bedroom downstairs that's more or less ADA compliant, and we do have a ramp in the back, so we meet the criteria just barely. And if you think about the sensitivity of someone that's coming into a shelter, they've been abused, they come with their children, they need a place where they can learn, where they can heal, where they can thrive. And the current shelter does not meet those needs. Not to mention that we really don't want to ever be in a position to turn someone away that's being abused and that it's not safe. So several years ago, we did a feasibility study about 3 years ago, but we've really been looking at how we're going to address our needs for quite some time, because the problem, unfortunately, is not going to go away. And if we're not equipped to deal with the problem, then where is a person in danger going to go? It's that simple. So we did find the right property. We are in the process of building a new shelter, and thanks to the community who has been behind us 100%, and of course with a lot of Dave's leadership and other people in the community that have embraced this project as a necessity. It's not really a want, it is a need. We have been able to achieve 91% of our financial goal, which is approximately $2,600,000 towards our $2,865,000 original goal. Now, will that cover everything? I think we're going to be in very good shape. However, some of the costs have gone up, and we have other issues that we're working very closely with the city to address. But very soon, you're going to see a Close the Gap campaign. It'll probably appear first on Facebook, so keep an eye on the Caring Place Facebook page, because there's still many opportunities that everyone can get involved and help us meet those financial goals.
Great. So the first hurdle is you've gotten over. Now, you broke ground, which everyone was concerned about with the setting in of winter. But one thing I'd like to draw back and circle back on and give people kind of a visual of what you have now. Last time you were on the show, I think we talked about domestic violence. I think arrests were somewhere around 120 a year, or am I understating that?
Approximately, from my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, about 5 arrests that are domestic violence related per week.
Per week?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. So now, how many beds do you currently have? Now, with the understanding that when we're dealing with the domestic violence situation, it's just not the target, the wife or husband, it's also the children as well. So how many beds do you have to accommodate right now?
We can accommodate approximately 24 to 25. and that includes children in our current shelter. The new shelter will have almost double that capacity at 48, all on one level with some privacy, and not only that, areas where families can be together and singles can be together. I mean, alone if they're not with a family, because right now with dormitory style living, they're all in one room. And you might have someone coming in without children that's in a room with someone with 3 or 4 kids. And that's not always conducive to what we're trying to achieve in terms of moving people to the next steps, which is finding housing, finding jobs, and getting out of that abusive relationship.
And talking about helping them get to the next step, there's also room required in the facility for counseling and training, and so it's just not a shelter. There are other services that are provided by the caring place.
Yeah, and the best way to see everything that we do is to go on our website, thecaringplacenwi.org, because there's a lot of good information. And we also have drop-down menus that talk about domestic violence and talk about ways to get help. The only thing that I would encourage, though, is to not contact us in an emergency through the website. Call us directly. We are the only, or one of the only live crisis lines in Porter County, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If someone calls the shelter, they're going to get someone that can help them with the next steps.
Yeah, true. So, I mean, by all means, if it's life-threatening or critical, there's only one number they should be calling, 911. And beyond that, if it's something that's not critical and the danger is immediately out of place, they can call that emergency line.
Correct.
Also, there is an Indiana line now, the 211, is it? That they can call to if they're anywhere in Indiana, and they will help them find resources?
I think that's a helpful line, but I wouldn't encourage that for domestic violence, because unless they're living outside the community or outside Northwest Indiana and they need information about shelters that may be in a different community, it's better just to call us directly. We can also help them navigate where the best place is for them if our shelter is either too far away or someplace that they don't feel safe coming to. So.
Well, that's good to know. All right, so they really can get your number off the website or Facebook page and
Right.
call that immediately if they're looking for a place or help to get out of a bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we looking at time? Let's talk about the construction now. You're breaking ground. We saw the pictures. So when do you anticipate the original steps to take place?
Well, the timeline is once we break ground, which was about 2 weeks ago. Hopefully, once the foundation is laid and the walls are up, it's about 7 months to completion. So early spring, April, May, the latest summer, we should be having a ribbon cutting where we'll actually move everyone in the current shelter into our new location. That's the goal.
Awesome. And this is one of the things that is kind of reassuring about this is some of the plumbing and the electrical work were a headache in the old facility. I think it's and it's something to say that we really needed a safer place to put people that were in danger,
Right.
Without putting them in danger themselves in the facility. So I've heard about the plumbing. I heard about the electrical, which was concerning. But congratulations. It's been a long process, but I think a lot of people like Sheriff Reynolds here has stepped up, and some other folks have had fundraising things and so on. So we're really looking forward to having that open up so people have a more room to stay in and a better place to seek shelter in. So congratulations again. I would like to thank both you for coming on the show. I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. And as we get along in that construction project, we'll keep in touch and we'll share that over our show here. So with that, we would like to thank you both again for appearing on the Bill and Kelly show. Sorry, Kelly. She's in Europe, right? So at any rate, we would like to wish everyone a safe weekend. And again, as Mary Beth stated, if you ever need help, if you feel like you're in a situation that warrants assistance, please, if your safety is in danger, call 911. If it's something where you're just looking for a place to stay and you're not in immediate danger, danger, call the caring place, and there will be some very helpful, very compassionate people willing to guide you along to a safe place to stay. With that, we would like to wish you all a safe and enjoyable weekend, and we'll see you next week on The Bill and Kelly Show.